It was gorgeous.
Yeah, it had a pizza oven.
Super cute cottage kitchen.
Yeah.
The sunset,
There was like champagne grapes growing in like a little pergola.
Yeah, stone house. Incredible.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
So we're continuing with our country deep dives, and this week we are answering the question, how do I world school in Italy?
So Ashton, how do we world school in Italy?
Italy's a great country. You know, it's a popular country to visit. I think it gets a lot of visitors just in general, one of the top European countries.
Yeah,
probably.
For sure.
But I think that there's a lot of good things about it too. A lot of the opportunities for learning for families when they go visit.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting, I wouldn't say stigma, but there's an interesting divide in the world schooling world where there are many families who kind of avoid Europe and go only to Latin American countries or Southeast Asia or something. And a lot of that has to do with affordability. And then there is a large group of people that like to go to Europe. I think Europe is also traditionally common here in the United States as destinations for vacations.
Yeah.
Because it's safe or comfortable, whatever the case might be. I think maybe when we first started traveling, we were a little bit hesitant about Europe for affordability reasons.
Yeah.
We're also, I think we tend to lean towards not focusing, not being so Eurocentric for a number of reasons. Having said that, Italy was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So let's cover some of the logistics of traveling.
Yeah.
There.
All right. So just like we've done in the other episodes, you know, Italy's a fairly large country, larger than I think you may think it is. It seems small, I think, but it's actually a fairly large country. It's quite a span too when you talk about the north end to the south end. So, you know, if you're down on the south end, like Sicily, for example, it's very Mediterranean. It's much different climate than, say, if you're on the north end where you're more in the Alps, right? So it's so it's incredibly diverse as far as landscape and geography. And that also translates to diversity in food and people and all sorts of things. We spent most of our time in northern, so we flew into Rome and then went north from there.
Yep.
And so we experienced most of that. Our Mediterranean days were in a later episode when we spent time in Spain. But chances are you'll fly into Rome. And there's other places you can fly into.
You fly into Milan.
Yeah, you fly into Milan.
I think we actually,
North End.
Didn't we? Oh, no. We flew into Rome and then we drove over to Milan.
Yeah. And we had our oldest son came and met us and flew into Milan.
Flew into Milan. Yeah.
So we flew into Rome, spent some time in Rome, and then went north from there. I think logistics wise, it's like a lot of the European countries. It's very easy for United States citizens or Canadians to travel to. It's
part of the Schengen countries. So if you want to go there, you'll have, the maximum amount of time in any of like the Schengen countries is 3 months. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Like you could spend your whole 3 months in Italy or just, a month and then the remaining 2 months elsewhere.
When we say 3 months, it's 90 days exactly.
That's true. 90 days. Yeah. And then you have 90 days that you can't be in any of the Schengen countries. And then you can come back.
Yeah. And I think there's no visa you need. If you're coming from the United States or Canada, I believe also, there's no visa you need to actually come into Italy. Many parts of Italy have tourism. Mm-hmm. So unless you're going to really small towns, most of Italy has like tourist centric. So there's lots to do. It's easy to travel. It is still largely, now this has changed when I first went to Italy back in 2000, 8 that was not as much English spoken when I went there. But when we went there as a family, there's actually considerable amount of English spoken now.
Yeah. But still, there are still places where like you're just going to need to learn a few phrases in Italian because they're not going to be able to speak to you in English.
Yeah. And this is it's a good moment to recognize, like, we love to learn as much languages as possible. Italy, we tried to learn a little bit, just like phrases, numbers, that kind of stuff. Italian's one of those things where to us doesn't seem like a practical language to learn.
Sorry, Italians.
We love Italian. It's absolutely beautiful language. It's just, when
there's only one country that speaks it. So
and you speak it very well. It's incredible. So, but yeah, so I mean, Italian is the language that is spoken there. Some English. I think most tourists that go there are not going to speak Italian. So the Italians are good at understanding other languages, though. So Spanish, for example, we do speak some Spanish. Our very first experience, the taxi driver spoke to us in Spanish, which was awesome. So we were able to communicate that way.
Because he couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
But he could speak Spanish. Yeah. So
Rome is a pretty easy airport to fly into.
Mm-hmm.
You actually, when you land, you don't get bombarded, I think, with a lot of, at least when we were there, you don't get bombarded with a lot of people trying to vie for your attention. So that was kind of nice. And then other logistics, they are Euro based there.
Mm-hmm.
At least when we were there, they were still Euro based. I think they're still Euro based now. Having said that, it's very easy to get around without cash there.
Yeah, you can pay with card.
Except maybe when you get in the smaller towns, we noticed it was more like some of the smaller cafes and stuff are cash based.
Yeah.
It's not as, there are other European cities that we'll talk about, or UK cities that are much more advanced as far as like cash versus non-cash. But I think Italy was similar to US, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mostly credit card based or card based, but some cash can help from here to there.
In terms of getting around, there's trains you can take. We took the train from Rome to Milan. And then there are also buses. We took a bus from, where was it? Was it from Milan? Out of Italy to France. So you just have to be wary that this particular bus we took had a 7-hour transfer, but it was like on the side of a highway. So we just sat on the side of the highway at the bus stop for like 7 hours. Not fun. So just, like if you're taking those discount buses, just kind of be aware of like transfers and how long and things like that.
Yeah, right.
And then you can also rent a car. We covered our experience driving in Italy in a previous car rental episode, but just to say that, like, if you are going to rent a car, be wary of like the speed limits and areas where it's like pedestrian only.
Yeah.
Because you will get ticketed.
Yeah. Having said that, though, driving in Italy from the United States, pretty easy. Very similar road rules.
I think they drive on the right side of the street.
Yeah, it's the same side of the road, right side of the road, left side of the car. So it's the same as the United States. So there's no changes there. The traffic laws are very similar. Just you need to know the speed limits. I think that's the one tricky thing. The country is beautiful to drive in. Absolutely incredible to drive in. I mean, I think one of the most enjoyable driving experiences.
Yeah, very picturesque.
Yeah, just everywhere. Very picturesque. We were in the Italian Alps for a bit, and then a lot of kind of
the Parma region.
The Parma region, yeah.
So, and then one thing in terms of lodging, hotels are there, Airbnbs are there, and then there are these things called Agriturismos, which are like farm stays that you can book. So we didn't end up getting to do that while we were in Italy, but we saw a lot of that when we were in the Parma region, and I think that would be something we could consider when we go back to Italy in the future.
Yeah. Italy's also going through this interesting transition where they're really trying to bring in digital nomads or foreigners to help buy and restore property. So there are opportunities for families to have longer, like, living opportunities there.
Yeah.
We're not going to cover any of that in any of our podcast episodes, because that's not really where we are. But we do know this is one of the countries that are openly inviting people to try to come live there.
In fact, there is one program that's specific for digital nomads where they go and they stay, like, the Italian government will give a stipend for you to stay in a village, work there, and also like teach, locals some skills so that they can be like, remote workers as well.
Yeah.
So
the diversity makeup of Italy, we talk about this in the previous 2 episodes. Like, it's somewhat diverse. I think it's diverse in like cultures in general, like that. I don't know. I guess it's pretty diverse as far as people and backgrounds and things like that. I don't
know if I can speak to the diversity. I think that there is also, I don't know, like national pride in being Italian.
I think
so, somebody that is an outsider will always be, or it seems like from our point of view as travelers, will always be seen as like outsiders.
Yeah. I think we're a little sensitive about this because this was the first country in our Worldschooling travels that we actually got a little bit of kind of.
Yeah, it was like microaggressions in a way, but definitely like racially charged.
Yeah.
I think we had some gentlemen on the bus kind of comment about yelling at us about like being Filipino. And I remember walking through a square, walking by a restaurant, and there was this man sitting at like a restaurant, and he started yelling like made up Asian sounding things like, oh, whatever, like very blatantly offensive.
If that sounds
yes, it was awful. But he was saying that as he was like looking at me walking by, and it's like I can brush it off, but it was something that is like I would not have gotten that if I was white. So,
and for those of you that are not watching this on YouTube and you're actually listening to, we are an Asian American family. I'm Filipino American. Astrid is Indonesian, and so we also knew that there was some context in Italy where there was some, especially against Filipinos, there was some animosity towards immigration, and so. Anyways, we only want to mention that because it was the first time that we ever felt like that in any of our travels to this point.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it was just a couple incidents. Everything else was amazing. I mean, we really enjoyed our time.
Yeah. So let's go through some of the highlights then. What would be something that, World Schooler would enjoy about visiting Italy?
Well, let me just say, I wouldn't even say if you're lucky enough, because it's pretty easy to find these accommodations. We found a 6-year-old, 600-year-old farmhouse in a small family-owned villa that was right on the countryside near Parma. There's vineyards around. It was incredibly idyllic. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, it had a pizza oven,
super cute cottage kitchen.
Yeah,
the sunset, like
there was like champagne grapes growing in like a little pergola.
Yeah, stone house, incredible. So, I mean, one thing I think and we've known several Worldschooling families that Italy is a popular spot because you can find these countryside estates, these countryside lodgings for fairly cheap. I mean, I think at the time we paid roughly $1,100 for the month, which in context, and that's $1,100 US dollars
for a 3-bedroom.
For this 3-bedroom house. In contrast, that's like almost a third of some people's rent here in Seattle.
Yeah.
So that is incredibly low for what we got. And we're not the only family. Lots of families like to go to Italy for this very reason. To add additionally to that, before you get into kind of some of the other like cultural and history and that kind of stuff, the cost of living was really affordable. I think this was one of the surprises I think we had in Europe in general and Italy specifically, is that we were staying about 45 minutes outside of Parma in the countryside.
Yep.
And grocery shopping, the little cafes nearby us were incredibly affordable. Like buying charcuterie for like €1.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, fresh pasta from the grocery stores, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like the outside of the big cities, it was affordable. So, if you're going to be in Rome, spending most of your time in Rome, obviously it's going to be more expensive, and Venice as well, because Venice is just priced for tourists.
Also, if you're going out to a restaurant, it's like proper sit-down restaurants is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But we loved cooking. Like, it was one of the places we loved to cook.
And that's where we like learned how to make pasta. So we were like rolling our own pasta and
making our own pizzas.
Yes.
Yeah. So what about you? What are some highlights for you?
So what I loved about, I'm kind of a history geek, but I don't memorize history facts. I just love the idea that like there were these like fascinating cultures that existed before, like so many years ago. And Italy is just so old. I mean, I think you were, was it Rome? I don't know. It's like, Rome is like thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And we're walking through this city and it blows my mind as somebody who grew up in a country that, maybe the oldest building is like several hundred years old. Yeah. It was just mind-boggling to me to be walking in the Colosseum and this building that was like thousands of years old and still standing. And just so that is like one highlight is just the amount of history, like Roman history you can learn about, and then just getting and experiencing some of that. In Venice, we did a tour with this company called Macaco Tours, and they do great like kid focused, but still educational, like scavenger hunts. Mm-hmm. And so we did one about like centered around the Doge in Venice. And then we went and followed, like our guide was also the one that was helping us go through the scavenger hunt. And she would give us like brief little facts and then do like activities with the kids and things like that. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it was incredible. I think it's also good to mention one of our tips. We did this in Mexico City too, but one of our tips for kind of getting acquainted to a city when we were in Rome is we'll actually buy the double-decker tour bus. Mm-hmm. It sounds super cheesy and super touristy, but it is a great, easy way when you first get in a place to get your bearings, to understand the lay of the land, kind of see a highlight and overview of everything.
Yeah.
And it's not intense, like it's relaxing. The kids can relax and stuff. So we did that in Rome as well. And it was really nice to kind of get that. You're right. The history there, it's incredible. I mean, you're just immersed in it. You're walking down the street and there's an apartment building that's 30 years old.
Yeah.
And right next to it is a partial wall that's been there for 2,000 years. It's just incredible. Yeah. So beyond the history, though, I think this is a popular topic of ours, the food.
Yes. Food.
I mean, everyone talks about Italian food. Yes. Eat, pray, love. That was a major focus. Like Italian food, no one's a stranger to the romance and the passion towards Italian food. But there's a reason for that. I mean, it's incredible. Like, and being in Italy, we ate all sorts of places. Like I said, grocery stores are really incredible. You buy fresh pastas for really affordable prices, hanging charcuteries, that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Great cheeses. But what are some highlights of the food?
I would say, so, we stayed in this like farmhouse about 45 minutes outside of Parma. And probably like around 10 minutes from where we were staying up in the hills was this like osteria, like a family-owned restaurant. And I found it on the map, like Google Maps, and like, oh, let's go eat here. And we show up, and it's just a lady's like backyard that she's sort of turned into a restaurant. Yeah. And we come over and we're like looking at the menu, and we don't speak Italian, and she didn't really speak English.
I don't think she spoke English at all.
Spoke English, so we're kind of miming like, well, what do you recommend? And so she was like pointing to this, and she's kind of trying to explain it, but I loved listening to her talking.
She's just so genuinely nice too. She just was like, this just like warm energy.
But the food was beautiful, and like just the setting. We were sitting in this outdoor seating area, and the sun was setting, and like
looking out at a mountain forest.
I think another thing you want to talk about, like the food museums in Parma.
Yeah. So what's amazing is when we get back to kind of the educational side of Worldschooling, both science and history and culture mixes with food in Italy. Because food is such a huge part of Italian history that
Yes.
there are, in the area we were staying in, there's these series of, I think it's 5 museums, 5 food museums. Or I don't know how many.
Maybe 7.
Yeah, maybe 7. But there's a series of these small museums, really no bigger than like a house. They're really small museums, but they're all centered around very specific types of food. So one was a sausage museum. One was a wine museum. That one was in a castle, I believe. There's like a cheese museum, a tomato museum, I think an artichoke museum,
A ham
museum. So they're all one focus, and they're all in different towns too. So what was incredible, all within the Parma region. So all within like 20 miles of each other, I think roughly.
Yeah.
So we had a car, so we got to go and because we were there for over a month or for a month, we just spread out our time. We would go to one museum a day over the course of a week or a couple weeks. And they were incredible. We got to go to these new towns that we probably wouldn't have seen or gone to in general.
Yeah.
And then you get there, and some places had samples and some places didn't. Like the tomato museum obviously didn't have samples of tomatoes, but it was really cool to like learn about the history of tomatoes that came from the Americas. But
yeah. Well, I mean, that's another thing
yeah.
too. It's like you see the like effects of colonialism, globalization, and how that has hugely influenced and impacted Italian cuisine.
Yeah. Wheat and the tomatoes and stuff. And anyways, so that was incredible. That, and then the other kind of food museum thing that I would say was we visited a dairy in Parma. So Parma, of course, is known for Parmesan cheese. I mean, that's like one of the things that it's known for.
Yeah.
And Parmesan cheese comes from that region of the world.
Yes.
And so we went to a dairy there and learned about how they make Parmesan.
Yeah, we watched the whole process of cheese making, from like just the mixing of the milk or the heating it up, and then we went into like the storage where they were storing these shelves piled high with Parmesan cheese wheels.
These huge Parmesan cheese wheels. Yeah, it was incredible. That was great. That's a great example of like a science. I mean, that was a science bit.
Yeah, because in fact, before we did that, like before we went on that visit, we like watched a TED Ed video about like how cheese is made, or like what was the history of cheeses, so that the kids kind of had like a little bit of already some context going into it.
Yeah, and they spoke specifically about like why Parmesan cheese is specific to that region and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
those were great. What else? What are some highlights?
I think Italy is also a great place for art. We did a fun little art activity, like a mosaic art activity, because we were learning about, the kids and I were kind of during our down days learning about Roman culture and stuff. And so we tried to do our own mosaics with like, magazines and things like that. But then we'd go to like the castles and we'd see like the artwork there, or things like that.
Well, and then just Milan in general. Milan is like this architectural haven. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Yes. And it's, of course, it's like one of the fashion staples of Europe. Mm-hmm. It's just, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
It might be blasphemous, but we did not make it to Florence. I was an art major, and I should have pushed for us to go to Florence. Many world-schooling families have been like, "You did not go to Florence?
Yeah. Why were you in Parma?"
We were so close to Florence. So someday we will make it there. But yeah, I mean, Florence is a huge impact. I mean, we went to like the Sistine Chapel when we were in Rome.
Yeah.
And obviously the Michelangelo, but we also saw Raphael and the Hall of Statues, and it's just, I mean, for any art lover or history, it's such a centerpiece for classical art.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
Speaking of museums, this is not an art museum, but a very cool, little bit quirky museum that we went to when we were there is Volandia, which is like, it's just outside. It's actually at the Milan airport and is just like an airplane museum, but it was really cool for the kids to kind of go, and we got to walk through like an old airplane, some old airplanes and stuff. And then there were some cars too that were there. So yeah.
That's a great treat, especially if you fly into Milan or something and you're like, you just kind of in that area because it's near the airport, I believe.
Yeah, it's like right next to the airport.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to mention also is we also spent some time in Trento, and I highly recommend getting to the Italian Alps if you get a chance, because it's stunning. I mean, I grew up in Colorado here in the United States. The Rockies are also absolutely stunning, and I was blown away by just the sheer altitude and just beauty of the Italian Alps.
Yeah.
And Trento is just this, like, it's very similar to what's the town that supposedly Romeo and Juliet's based out of?
Verona.
Verona, yeah. So it's like just this gorgeous mountain town that has like these old castle structures. It was just incredible.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of like German influence to some of it, some of the food and some of the like architecture too. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but we loved Italy.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
You can read about some of the places that we visited in Italy on the blog. I wrote about Parma. I wrote about the Volandia Airport Museum and also Trento.
Yeah, very cool. All right.
Yes. So anything else to add?
I don't think so.
All right.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into worldschooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any worldschooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye.